Consistent relationships. My name is Rachel Caldwell, and this is...
My name is Kayla Sokoloff.
Yes, and we're going to give a little more of our background in just a moment. But I just wanted to start by saying, let's be honest, relationships can be messy. I bet everyone here understands that, right? Sometimes it can be the best part of life, and it can also be the hardest part of life and our jobs. So when we're in a positive, good relationship with our things can be awesome and we can love going to work every day. But when there's tension, when things are kind of under the radar, not going so great, then it can make our jobs really, really hard and we can dread getting to work every day. So anything you want to add on that just as we get into it?
No, I think we all can probably relate to that at some point. Maybe you're here because you've had in the past or you have right now. Y'all know we just spend all of our time together, right? You're in the same office. I don't think anybody understands what we do except for us, right? The principal doesn't get it. Your husband and spouse don't get it. You spend so much time with this person, and there's a lot of opportunity for friction because we are all so passionate about this, or we wouldn't have committed so much time to what we do. And so that is why we wanted to offer this session, because we think it's so important to talk about and be able to strengthen, build, and grow that relationship.
Exactly. And if anyone was in the session last night about healthy team dynamics, this relationship I think is probably the most important relationship on your team because it's really setting the tone. And just a disclaimer, we are not experts in this by any means, but we're just going to share some of our experience in working together and things that we've learned, and then also things we've observed with some of our friends and other dance directors as well. So let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of just our background so you guys can learn a little more about us. So I grew up dance team world in high school and also was doing ballet outside of school. So I went to Austin High School in Fort Bend ISD. Was under Betsy Conway-Heacock, if anyone knows her. She's amazing. And Kayla was also in Fort Bend ISD.
So I'm a Dulles graduate. If anybody knows Angela Hayes, she was my director. And we met at Dulles as the directors.
Yes. There. So I started as the director at Dulles in 2017 and had one assistant for 2 years, and then Kayla came in 2019. Yes. Years are weird. She came in 2019. We had a nice year leading into the pandemic. Oh, thank you. Perfect. So we had a really fun first year because we went straight into COVID. And then the year after that, we were obviously not in person for a little bit. We were also in a welding shop for a while because our room was being renovated. So just lots of fun, crazy stuff that we walked through together. But we grew, I feel so much in the last 3 years working together as people and in that dynamic. And then I stepped away from full-time teaching at the end of last year and am now getting to do more of this and do consulting, and I actually also wrote a book, which is super fun. So I'm working on building resources for dance directors, things that I wish that I would have had. And Kayla was the one who took over as head director at Dulles, so that was super cool. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah. So we're gonna get into a little bit just kind of about our background. I don't know if anybody here, does anybody teach at their own high school that they graduated from? Yes, it's a very special, unique thing. And so coming in, just to kind of give you a little bit, yes, clearly we love each other a lot, but coming in, this was the team that I was on, and Rachel took over when Angela retired, and Rachel and Angela are not the same person by any means. And I think people know, if you think about your own high school, if you got the chance to go back, you would probably have a vision about how you think the team is supposed to run, because that's how Ms. Hayes ran it for 30 years, right? So just kind of to give you how things maybe could have gone, which I'm totally skipping ahead.
But. That's okay. This is how it could have gone. End of contest day. A little bit crazy. But it's true, and I think I was nervous when Kayla first came in because I knew she had that background and she knew about the team and the traditions and everything. But really from the start, she just gave me her backing, which made a huge, huge difference. So I think something that we want to just touch on for a second is, you know, this relationship is very dynamic. It's constantly changing, and how we can, we're going to talk about today some tools and things that will help kind of open the lines of communication, because I think that's really the key, is keeping that line of communication open, not shutting down, not going like silent treatment on each other. Kind of going off script here a little bit, but I feel like that's why this is so important, because it can really make or break your experience. So we're gonna actually jump in, I think, to our first discussion.
Yeah, I was just gonna say also real fast, if we could do a show of hands, who
Yeah.
here has heard of like a negative, let's pretend it's not you, but has had a friend maybe who had like a not so great relationship between director and assistant director? Who has heard that? Yes? So that's really why we started this. You know, Rachel, like you can just see it oozes out of her, like the nicest person on the planet. And so I was so lucky to walk into that, because I am a very strong personality, which I think a lot of directors are. Has anybody here heard of the Enneagram?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, knowing what your numbers are. So I am a 3, which is, yes, a lot of directors I think are 3s and 8s,
Yeah.
right? So my current assistant director is an 8. And I am a 3, which is, for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, it is like a self-assessment that you can do that is based on your motivation. So how people are motivated. And I am motivated by achieving things, which makes sense. Dance team, like I wanted to win, I wanted to be captain, right? Then I wanted to come back and like lead, right?
Exactly.
And Rachel,
I am a 9 on the Enneagram. So 9 is the peacemaker, and it's very much like wants everyone to feel good, wants the dynamic to be calm and peaceful, everyone to be happy with each other. So I really thrive with that sense of like community, togetherness, and I tend to be a little bit slower to make decisions because I'm a 9 wing 1. Anyone else got that 1 in you where it's like a bit of a perfectionist and wanting to make sure everything's good? So I would kind of procrastinate sometimes because I'm like, if it's not perfect, I don't want to like send it out or whatever. And then Kayla's over here, Miss Efficiency, right? So we had a little bit of that. You can see where there's some tension, maybe that could creep in. So Kayla would be like, let's just get it done. And I'm like, but I gotta think through all the details.
like today, like yesterday, like
Exactly.
let's make a decision.
So we definitely, I think, grew a lot from that because we stretched each other in different ways. And that's definitely a tool that we would recommend, is maybe some of those personality assessments, especially Enneagram, because it really does dive into like your motivation, your why, versus just behavior. So that's one of the things that we'll share with you guys. But
yeah, and something that was unique for me was I was not coming in like right out of college. So I lived and worked in DC for a couple of years, then I was actually a history teacher. So I was already coming in with some work experience. Whereas like my current co that I work with is brand new, graduated in May, 22, right out of college, first job. So I already came in with, I had run a classroom by myself for 2 years, right? I had lived in another state, like I kind of came in with some of that. But what we realized is, again, like I was able to know who I was and then verbalize that to Rachel, and that's what we want to help you do today. So the first thing we're gonna do, getting into that question, is you'll see on your paper the side that says what makes you feel valued. What we want you to do is think for a second, not at home, not from your significant other, but specifically in the workplace, and I'll come and pass out more for those of you that need it in just a second, is what is it that makes you feel valued? And some examples that I'll give just to kind of get your brain going. As a 3, I feel valued when I have the opportunity to achieve and then get positive feedback, right? And I'm sure lots of us can relate to that. But so thinking as assistant director or as the head director, what are things that make you feel valued? We'll give you a few minutes to jot some thoughts down.
everyone get that's what we're gonna say.
Alright, I hear the discussion died down a little bit. So does anybody willing to share? And we do have raffle tickets. So anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I'll share.
Yeah.
So I said when people see my hard work and like actually recognize like what we've done and how far we've come, and can just like visualize that and acknowledge that we started from 0 and now we're at 10.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, she kind of like, I guess she read my answer.
I was cheating over here.
But exactly what she said, and I really feel valued when I get feedback from my peers and my leaders, and it could be good or bad. Like, hey, like, and that way I know, like, you also don't just value me, you value my team, and you want to see us grow. So that's, and then what she said.
Love that. Yes.
I think I saw another hand. Yes, ma'am.
Input and responsibility. Like,
Yes.
getting that
Are you the assistant director? Yeah, so I think it'll be kind of interesting, actually, if y'all could mention as you're answering, if you're an assistant director or, I don't know, head director, whatever you wanna call it. We always said we hate that it's called assistant because it ends up being like my assistant. And as someone who was the assistant director and now is head director, like, it's so easy to say my assistant, but she's not my assistant. Like, we are co's in this. So, sorry, if you could say that one more time.
Input and getting responsibility.
Ooh, nice.
Anybody else?
Like trusted with it.
Mine is similar, when I'm given the opportunity to lead and make decisions. And I'm the assistant.
Assistant. And then the first two that shared, are y'all head or assistant?
I'm a head director.
Head director?
I'm a head.
Head. Nice. Love that.
Yes.
Helping others and being a servant, and I'm assistant.
Nice.
Being a servant.
Awesome. And real fast, actually, would be great. Can we do a show of hands? How many are head directors in here? How many are assistant directors? Nice. That's awesome. One of the things that we both felt is it really is on the head director to create this very positive relationship. Because the assistant director, typically, not always, assistant director could have been there first, but they're often coming into like your program as the head director, and especially if there's someone who is like maybe a little bit younger or it's their first job, they may not feel comfortable starting these conversations. And nobody talks to us about this, right? We are not actually, as head directors, the supervisors. We don't have T-tests or whatever your district uses, right? We're not their appraiser. You may have had a say in hiring them, but like besides that, you really don't have a lot of ways to give feedback. And then again, you're like sitting next to each other all day and then riding the bus together and doing all of these things.
Sharing a room together.
Yes, sharing a bed at TDEA, best friends, and officer camp.
Our very first day working together was officer camp. And so, we get there and we're like, good night.
We've all been there, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. It's such a weird job, right?
Yeah, it really
So
is.
fun too, though.
Yeah. So our hope is that we often don't like really reflect on ourselves, right? Maybe we have our kids do reflections and things, but if you are able to think, okay, what is gonna make me feel valued, and then verbalize that to your partner, or sometimes our principals, right? I feel really valued if you would give me some positive feedback and come to my classroom, right? That is going to help this relationship because again, everybody knows the director is the director, right? The director, kind of like the president, the principal, they're gonna get the credit and the blame, right? And sometimes people will understand that it really is a partnership, right? And it is the director and the assistant director. But often people don't see and get that, right? Because what we do is not similar to like the JV coach, right? For basketball or football or whatever, it's a little bit different. And so it really is the director's opportunity, I think, to make the assistant director feel valued, because while they don't have that same, like, the buck stops with me level responsibility on them, they are probably there just as much as you, right? Maybe even more, because they also have to be at JV practice, right? And so what can you do to make them feel valued? So, I don't know if you wanted to give any of the examples about how I made you feel valued.
Yes, for sure. So I think something that Kayla did really well when we were working together was she was super great about like backing me in every situation. So if I was in front of the team and I said something, she would always back whatever I said. Even if she disagreed, we would maybe talk about it later, but she always had that like, yes mentality, I think, behind whatever I said. And then also when we were in front of other directors, she always was super complimentary, like, oh, you guys, Rachel is so good at blah, 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 or you guys should check out, she created this resource for ballet, like ballet unit, that kind of stuff. She always was kind of hyping me up a little bit, and that was such a huge way for me to feel valued and to feel like she had my back, and that we were a team effort, so, or a team front, maybe, is a better way to say that. So, I want to jump into our second question.
Yes, so we're gonna move on to the next question, which is what motivates you? So a little bit similar, maybe a little bit different. Again, my example as a 3 is, again, I love what I do. I care a lot about this team. I was on it. I care about the longevity of it. However, there are certain things like that positive feedback, getting, you know, a little bit better score at contests next week that motivate me. And then also being given work. So I think kind of like what you said and what we heard back there, as the assistant director, getting like assignments from Rachel, right? Especially as assistant director, you may be coming in your first year and be like, I just don't know what I can do here, right? And it's sort of on the director to share that. So if you want to take a few minutes and think about what makes you feel motivated.
After you've kind of thought about it on your own a little bit, if you want to share just what's around you, I might
New opportunities and community and team excitement, like with people who respond to what we're doing. Also, like constructive. Yeah, I know. Like I'm a people person. Yeah, I want people to at least which is so good. For a while, I was like,
I talk about things that like not people do that. I don't know
to myself, and that's not
we don't work together.
especially in this scenario.
So yeah, I see it anyway. Like she like makes things happen. I'm like, forget it, girl.
She couldn't think of what it was. I just got one of these good things.
So like recognize and like do it again.
She was just overhearing another conversation. Everything is so happy. And I said, well, here's the problem. Maybe you can help that they go to those fun things with football. Like, I want my role to back up the community. Like, cheerleading was one time. She was on cheer squad. Like, cheerleading.
Alright, I'm hearing so much good discussion. I would love if you could share out a little bit. We still have a couple of raffle tickets. We're gonna run out at some point, but yes.
You can keep the raffle ticket.
Okay.
I already got one. I'm motivated by the crowd. Like if we're like at like a football game, I'm like super like motivated by that. And it makes my kids like really pumped. Feedback, like hearing that recognition, like how well they're doing and how they, you know, slayed the performance. Music, I think music is a huge motivator, especially as directors. I mean, music is a big part of our job. And most importantly, I'm mostly motivated by my kids. You know, like I wouldn't be a director if it wasn't for them.
Yeah, I saw excitement over there. Yeah.
So mine was I put when everyone pulls their weight. So like when our assistant is like, yeah, done, got these things, and my kids like worked really hard that day, and it's like, and then it makes me want to be like, yeah, like how can I go the extra mile? So like when everyone like in our program is like working really hard and pulling their weight is what motivates me.
Love that. Kind of creates like a synergy.
Yes.
Yes. We're doing something great together.
Yeah.
One of the things I put was new opportunities, because like we both were on the team, but like within a different time gap, and so like getting to come back and recreate the bringing back things into the organization that had been lost. So like recreating and giving new opportunities and seeing the response to those opportunities that they haven't had before, that maybe we had an opportunity for.
Yes, I love that. Kayla did that when she came in. You know, she'd be like, we used to do this way back, and we could bring this back, and it was so fun, and they felt connected to that history. And then I brought things from when I was in high school that I thought were really fun and kind of incorporated those in as well. So.
Yeah, I think I saw another hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Some of the same things, definitely tasks, but passion for my program in dance and music. But as far as definitely the kids, I don't want any other job ever. But also how they respond to things. So I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this, and then they're like, well, I get, you know, you just feed off of that, and that motivates you. Okay, how can we make that better or do that a different way?
Yes.
To piggyback off of that, I really enjoy seeing their progress and their growth as kids, and I love watching their light up moments too, where they're like, oh, it just makes sense. Like, I love that. I love to see that, and that's like a huge motivator for me, because the way how I explained it, they were able to understand it too.
Right. I love those aha moments as well. I think that's a big one for me, and seeing them grow as people.
Yes.
You know, and like, wow, thinking about where they were freshman year, and now seeing their maturity and their growth. And I think I'm motivated by kind of that connection. So whether that's in a class and feeling the energy from the students, or if that's connection like with Kayla or whatever, that helps bring energy to me and give me motivation. So.
Yeah. Anybody else want to share on motivation?
Those are so good.
Yeah. One of the things that I was thinking about with motivation, so like thinking back to the Enneagram a little bit. So I think obviously, or hopefully, we're all motivated by being teachers and that impact we're gonna have with the students. But if you get a little bit deeper into like your everyday way of doing things, it is because how you are like motivated differently, right? So I am motivated by like getting things done, crossing things off the list, feeling productive and efficient. And that is very opposite of the way Rachel's motivated, and she may say differently, but from like my perspective, like she was saying, that connection, that relationship, that healthy team, and I was like, we are here for practice, let's go. Like, I don't care if you like each other. Like that, right? I just was like, that wasn't, that, and obviously I like I'm such good friends with my teammates still to this day, and I do care about that, but that was like secondary to like us being competitive, like let's go, right? And that efficiency, and that's just kind of, that's how I send an email, right? If it had a typo in it, like that didn't bother me, right? Because I was like, I got it out, I crossed it off, I did the thing, they understood. And so that was something that was really good, that I was like, I'm gonna always send my emails to Rachel before I send them, because I knew that she was gonna catch all of those little things.
Right. And then for me, it was like, okay, do you think this is good enough, right? And she's like, yes, okay, then I can feel good. And I would ask for input from Kayla and get that feedback that you guys were talking about. That helped me a ton. And I think also us kind of learning from each other. So it's been fun this year actually getting to talk to Kayla. Like we'll grab coffee or tea, actually, or we'll walk around and like shop and talk, and just hearing her say, you know, I'm really like realizing the value of taking time to talk through some of these things with the students or things like that, you know, and they're like, yay! But I also learned a lot about letting go of stuff too, and just also leaning on her strengths, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, but leaning on her strengths and saying, hey Kayla, do you want to leave rehearsal today because you're incredible at cleaning and we just need this to be like super efficient, right? So leaning on each other's strengths and recognizing that everyone brings something valuable to the table, for sure.
Yeah, and one little story before we go into our next discussion. We were just thinking about this because I was joking with one of our officers that she's very much like Rachel. So Rachel as a 9, peacemaker, never was like wanting to interrupt or
draw attention to myself. I don't like super bright, colorful clothing and jewelry, and my husband's like, why? It matches your personality, and I'm like, because then it's drawing attention to myself.
like we're literally dressed like
Yeah.
in our own
I'm like, these are like loud for me. These earrings.
like very different. And I would say also not necessarily like if you look around at directors, they tend to be a little more like loud sometimes. And like, hey, I'm the center. I don't care where I am in the room, I'm the center of the floor. Like, come to me, right? So there was just like, yeah. I'm in the corner, it doesn't matter. This is the center now. So one funny story, we like over our 3 years, there would be times that Rachel had to leave. She had a doctor's appointment, and so she was like leaving practice early. And she literally would like slink out. She never like said to the girls like, hey, I'm not gonna be here for practice, Miss Sokoloff is gonna run practice with y'all. Like she just would like literally disappear. I may have already been up there running practice, that wasn't weird. But it to me, I started to feel like she almost didn't like trust me that I knew what I was doing and I could run a practice, and so she didn't say anything about it and she just left. That was like what in my head I saw every time she did that. Like
Kind of the story you started telling yourself.
Yes, there was a game that she wasn't gonna be at, and I think she literally told the kids like the day before, and we had known for like weeks, like she's got a wedding she was going to or something. And so I kind of started to tell myself this story, like she doesn't trust me, she doesn't, even, not that anything else she did led me to believe that, but that was kind of the story.
Right. And so the great thing though was that Kayla brought this to my attention and was like, so I'm just curious, why do you not tell the girls when you're leaving early? And I was like, oh, I just really don't like to draw attention to myself, and I'd rather not disrupt things, just let it keep going and running, and you've got it, like I totally trust you. And I think for her, she was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, you would just share how that
Yeah, it just, again, I think we all know in relationships, we start to tell ourselves stories, and I don't know why. I think y'all can probably tell Rachel was so easy to come to and like didn't make me feel like I couldn't say the things that were on my mind. But even still, it took a lot of times of that happening before I finally said something. And in fact, actually, which I didn't mention, during the pandemic, we were at home. Someone that I follow had tweeted something like, any educators out there considering leaving the profession but still love it? And I was like, me? Like, you were working at home, I hate this. I was like, this is horrible, this is not what I signed up for. And as I saw that, I was like, my whole life, all I wanted to do is be a director. And I'm literally the assistant director at my own high school. Why am I feeling this way? And so I Googled life coach for young adults, and I found there's like all of these really cute, like boutique style women's young adult life coaching. I found one that was called Blush. They were like Texas based, but it was virtual, and I started working with a life coach. And through these discussions, she kept encouraging me to go to Rachel and say the things that I was feeling. Because
we can't read each other's minds, right? We kind of think we can, but we really can't. That's good marriage advice as well.
Sometimes you can't even read your own mind, right? It was like through working with this coach that I started to understand the Enneagram, and I started to understand what are these things that are happening, because I know Rachel's heart, Rachel's intention is like to make me feel valued and loved, and yet there were still things that I was feeling like rubbed the wrong way, just like a little bit of friction. And her name was Elise, and she was like, just sit down with Rachel and have that conversation. And we found that every time we did, we were both telling ourselves different stories, like that example we just gave.
Right. It helped so much just to open up the conversation and to be able to ask, so what were you thinking in this situation, or what was your perspective here? And like life changing or work changing. I wanted to jump, I think we're ready to jump into our second discussion. And as we get into this, I think kind of just to piggyback, we can have the same heart, but different ways of going about things, right? The same like ultimate goal, but have different paths to get there. So it's just good to be able to communicate why we like to do what we do, and then to value that other person's perspective. So we're gonna do another discussion, but this time what I'd like to do is, can everyone stand up real quick and bring your paper and pen with you, just in case you want to take notes. So stand up, and can I have all on this side of the room-ish, and then assistant directors on this side. And we're just gonna kind of see how many we have. If you are not yet a director, maybe go with the assistant side. That sounds good. And then within head directors and assistant directors, can we break up into groups of maybe like 5, 6, 7, something like that? So go ahead and find a little clump of like 5 or 6. Okay.
Oh my god. Good. How are you?
Well, you know. So, once you find your group, what we're gonna do is actually this is not a plan, but you can still write on it if you want. Sorry, we're not. But we're gonna talk about a couple of things together. So, what are some challenges that you're facing in your co-relationship right now, or you think you could potentially face if you're not working with a co? And then what is going well? So, challenges you're facing and what is going well, and just kind of like a little thinking moment with other fellow directors, and definitely keeping it more on this relationship rather than other challenges on your team right now. So,
Safe space opportunity to like something that maybe you're not sure how to handle or with some interaction. What are your thoughts on it?
right, and this is, let's keep this confidential amongst just your group. And then we'll maybe take some time to share out any common things that y'all heard amongst your people. Awesome. So go ahead and begin.
I'm moving, I'm trying.
Somebody keeping it
Not knowing what her capabilities are in here.
And when's this supposed to be?
So, like, typically when this is in court, that's the social
But I now think we're talking about she's learned about it as well. She's like, my intention is like making it out. To make her feel included. Like to me, like here, but like how to feel about right. Yeah, I was just right. It works. So just do it. Like, I'm like, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, mine's really yes. 100%.
But that was all she was saying. And then when I left, she kept saying, and I never said anything because that was cute. So,
We've done that. You know,
I feel like right now, since we're like and there's things like here that like I think
but I also really have extra decision because I
for sure.
That's brilliant. Fantastic.
Do you want to think about to kind of wrap up?
Like I feel like I'm doing behind the scenes.
Sorry, take a picture of this. But,
Kind of wrap up your final thoughts? Yeah. Make your way back to your seat. Thank you guys so much for I love it. All right. So what we would love to do is, did anyone hear something that was like, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way before, or something that stood out to you that someone else said, or a common theme that you're willing to share to the group? That would be amazing. So anyone have something that stood out to you?
I think for our group, it was more or less like, how do we make our assistant and coworker like feel loved and also feel like they're worth something while they're there. Because I know as an assistant previously, I've been in two situations. Like one, I felt super loved and like, oh, do these tasks, do these things, and I was like, check, 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 we're good. And then the second one, it was just a lot different. And so now coming into it as a head, being like, hey, I want you to feel loved at all times. Like, please do this. You're really good at this first cleaning. I'll go in detail later. You know,
Yeah.
things like that. And I think that was really nice to be able to round table.
Yes, to hear out other ideas of how to do that. And I think some of it is asking your co as well, just because everyone's different, right? So asking what it is that helps them, again, feel valued or loved. I love that. Any other thoughts, things that stood out? Yes, our back row, yeah.
So in our group, I felt like what I was hearing the most was just like comfortability to explain to the head director, like, hey, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling this way. Our relationship is very unique because we were friends for like years before we stepped into the like working together role. So we had like figured out the bumps of friendship already, I guess. But even still, then I didn't want to ruin that friendship because I had a job to do.
That can be harder sometimes even.
Yeah. So most of the first year, what I did and what I was telling you was I observed, yes, she's my friend, yes, I know this world as well as she does, but the positions that we're in, just to make sure that we're together on the forefront of the team watching, like make sure we're a combined unit, and then if I had any questions of how'd you do that, like what did you do here specifically, I would go in private in our office, talk to her about it, and then go from there. But I think that was one of the biggest things that I was hearing from the assistant side was, at what point do I feel comfortable enough to go to the head director and be like, hey, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way, but I was telling like, observe, have those questions, ask a little later.
Love that. One thing that I heard when I was listening into some assistant conversation was the idea that sometimes they would be in a situation in front of the team and hear the head director say something that they had no idea. You know, they're just kind of like caught off guard, like, what? I didn't know about that. So, and maybe vice versa as well. That could happen both ways. So that communication ahead of time, if there's some sort of decision being made or, you know, sometimes we don't think about it or things happen so fast, but any chance we can to try to communicate ahead of time so that people aren't caught off guard is super great. Other thoughts stood out to you?
I was gonna just also give you kudos for like coming in with that learner's mindset. I think both the assistant and director can do that, but I think, you know, we were all so hungry to be assistant directors or directors, right? And so you get there and you're so excited and you just wanna do things. And like coming in that first year, I mean, I was the same way and had to have written down on there, like it's a lesson in humility always, and like be humble and know like I was stepping into the assistant role. I don't even know if I've ever said this to you, but there were people that knew me that encouraged me not to take the role because they know my personality and were worried that I was going to just like trample over Rachel. And so I was very mindful of that, as much as I like wanted to push, but I was constantly saying like, is that okay? Did I support you enough? Can I do it differently? Like that was very, very important to me.
Yeah. And I can tell you were being mindful of it, for sure. Yeah. So that's super helpful. Awesome. Well, we'll keep moving, but we'll have some more time for discussion in just a little bit. So this actually is kind of what you guys were talking about, but something from the director perspective, and I know Kayla can also speak to this from her experience this year as well, but it really helps to set the tone, right? To set that environment where your assistant, word choice, the assistant feels comfortable, like you guys were talking about, to come and talk to you. So that might be like getting off campus once in a while, going to Starbucks and just like hanging out and talking. Sometimes being in the car together can be a great time to talk, actually. Another thing is just kind of asking those questions and opening up the space for, hey, is there anything that's been on your mind lately, or things that you've got questions about? That kind of thing can be so helpful. I feel like it really is the head director's responsibility to set that tone. Also, just come back here for a second. This idea of giving them your trust from the start can be challenging, but I think if you just automatically go in with generous assumptions and saying, you know, I trust you, I know you were qualified to be in this role, and yes, there may be some coaching and some tips and readjusting along the way, but I think if they feel like she trusts me, he trusts me, they're much more likely to feel comfortable to talk and also to give their best effort. So I think that was something, when we started together, I just kind of made that choice, maybe even subconsciously, like, I trust Kayla from the start. And I think I saw her also from the get-go just like very much committed as well, which helped.
Yeah, one of the things, does anybody know or heard of Dr. John Gottman? He's like a relationship expert. He's got lots of books. So I highly encourage, he's got like games and retreats and all kinds of things. But he has a quote, or he says that the healthiest relationships, they did research on this, are the ones in which 70% of bids are responded to positively. And bids is like with your partner, like they offer to, hey, can we like go out to dinner? I'd love like a date tonight. And if 70% of the time you're responding with like, yes, I love that, honey. I'm so tired. I had all those teachers like and students and all these things, but I still want to spend the evening with you. If you do that 70% of the time, that is a positive, healthy, long-lasting, not ending in divorce relationship. And so we were thinking about that. It's really with every relationship. Again, going like to the director, and now as the director with an assistant director, I'm constantly thinking, what am I doing to make sure that Alyssa feels valued? And when she comes to me excited about something, and my initial like, she wanted to do a game at a pep rally that I was like, no, like, nope, I don't want to be on the news. Like, with that game, okay? She showed that video off TikTok, and I was like, no, we're not doing that. And that was like my immediate, right? And I could see that she was like very upset and felt like, yes, and felt like she wasn't sure why. And so we later kind of talked about like, I think that is such a fun game, and we can do that just with our girls. But like doing it, and I was like, then I kind of talked through like why I said no, but then also I'm like, okay, so I said no one time, so like I need to say yes to a lot of things now. And again, as directors, we're kind of controlling. Yes, we're like a little bit micromanaging, controlling. This is our vision, our program. I put so much into this, and they reflect me, right? All of those things, but they reflect both of you. And how many times can you say yes to that person and make them feel like their opinion is valued and what they're adding to the table is important? Because like I have heard many a time, my assistant, like she just doesn't do anything. Like she'll just sit there and I can't trust her. I can't leave her to practice because I don't know what's gonna happen, and then I feel stressed because I have to be at everything. And if you really think back, like how many times did you kind of like shut down your assistant in front of your kids or make her feel like she shouldn't step up and be proactive, and so she's not, because she probably came in very proactive and excited, and if over time you kept saying, no, that's not how we do it, oh, I know that Ms. Caldwell made it this way, but I'm gonna change it, right? Like how many times did you do those like little tiny things that then made her feel like, well, she didn't like, I just am gonna sit here because my opinion isn't valued, right?
Yeah, that's super huge, I think. It's just that positive kind of yes mentality as much as possible. And just a fun story off of that, the idea of, okay, what are things that they're excited about? So last year, I think it was last year, it was our 50th anniversary for Dolls, and Kayla was super excited about the idea of starting a website, not just the school website, but having like a nice one, right? And I loved that idea as well, but I was already overwhelmed. I like had way too much going on, so I just kind of kept putting it off, and she kept kind of mentioning it, and then eventually I was like, you're so excited about this, would you be willing to just take it on, and this is like your project, and I give you full, like, here's the money, do it, and she did, and it was incredible, and I think that's fun too. So if there's something that either director is really good at or excited about, kind of delegate.
Socials, your formal event, like really, and I know I've heard like some directors will be like, this is the list of responsibilities, right? If you've got that, and we're gonna get into a question kind of about that in a second.
Yeah.
So just kind of transitioning to that, like what are the things that you really like? I know I've heard some people over here, like maybe your assistant director is younger and they wanna run social media and they wanna do all the stuff in Schoology or whatever, like Google Classroom or things like that. So trying to find those things that they're excited about and releasing, like letting go and being like, we are a team. We are supposed to do this together. It's not like, you don't have to do everything just because you're the director. And the assistant doesn't have to just do everything for Jen.
Right, and head director, I think there's this, we were talking about this morning, there's this feeling inside, like I have to be at everything and be in the front when we're cleaning or leading the group, but it doesn't have to always be the head director, and I think that was really freeing when I realized that. So lastly for this is just head directors thinking about your vision for the program and communicating that to the assistants, and also assistants thinking about how can you support that vision, and if they haven't communicated to you what their vision is, to talk through it and ask questions so that you know what is the goal here, like what are we trying to achieve, and I think that can be super helpful. So we kind of already talked about this, the idea of just valuing each other, looking at what each person loves and what they can take ownership of. And then, do you want to just touch on this briefly and we'll get into our next question?
Yeah, I think I pretty much
Yeah, you kind of covered it.
all.
Awesome. Communicate. Don't go silent. That's the worst, I feel like. That just can.
Yeah, bring it up as soon as it happens. Like, I remember another thing. We were, it was a contest practice, and I had been kind of hard on the girls. And like, right after, Rachel kind of came back and was like, you know, we love y'all. We want you to feel good. And like the next day, and I kind of in that moment was like, oh, like I was too hard on them. She didn't like what I said, and I felt, which I don't think the kids saw that at all, but I kind of felt that in that moment. And the next day we kind of had a conversation about it, and actually it was Rachel who was like, hey, I did not mean like to step on you at all. That was just like my gut reaction was to say that. So anytime anything happens, like do not let it fester, right? I always say like to our kids, when you get a roommate and you want to take out the trash every day, you do not wait until 4 months later to tell your roommate you're mad at them because they never took out the trash one time. Like you have to say it right then. And that's something like she said about like, hey, let's run to Starbucks during lunch real fast, and like it gets you out of that same space, and just allows for some of those like little moments to come up.
That's a great example, because I think in that moment there was kind of like that check, you know, when you feel something in your gut and you're like, oh, I feel like that was just off, or I didn't say what I felt like I should have said at the moment. I think that's really good if you notice that, to actually pay attention and then start that conversation as soon as possible. Awesome, so we are gonna just get into the last few questions, and they're gonna be talking about like kind of delegating, like what are your favorite tasks and things like that. But to go into that, we touched on this a little bit, but you do not have to do it all, right? So thinking about, we are humans, we only have so much energy, we only have so much like emotional capacity, right? So just remembering that and being that support for one another and sharing the load. And we, I think especially through the pandemic, learned like quality over quantity, and trying to just make practices efficient and beneficial as possible, but shorter maybe, and also balancing each other out. And it's okay to like one person go home a little early because the other person is gonna be getting there early the next morning, right? Or like if I had a booster club meeting and she knew I was kind of stressed about that and preparing and all of that stuff, and she'd be like, hey, I will like handle first period tomorrow if you wanna just kind of like come in late.
I don't know if y'all are able to do that.
I don't know if you do that, but
Don't tell
or
principals.
just like, sorry principals.
Like we co-teach, so
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, come in late, or hey, we don't need to both ride the bus to that game. I'm not feeling well, so I'm gonna drive my car, and think about like how much time that adds on after the game, getting back to the school and all of that.
Exactly, but just protecting each other's time, and I think communicating as well, because I remember early on, my first year, spring show rehearsals, the idea, I think I was also coming in with this from kind of the professional dance background, but it's like you stay till you get it good and done, and we were there till like 9 p.m. for rehearsals for spring show, and that was partly because the assistant I was working with at the time also had that mentality, and started to realize like this isn't healthy, you know, we're kind of getting diminishing returns at some point. And so communicating and saying like, hey, I'm really just kind of starting to feel burnt out or worn out, and is there any way we can make some adjustments? So, awesome. Okay, so who here is with your co today in this session? Yay, thank y'all for bringing your co. So if you are with your person, or people, you can use this time to talk with each other in this next few questions. If you are not, we raise our hands real quick, and can you find someone else that has their hand raised and go sit by them, so that you have someone to talk with?
We also just want to say we printed a bunch of these in case Rico is not here.
Yeah, we'll have some too, guys. Everyone has a buddy or two, either that you're with or someone that you're Yes, sir.
favorite word task. So now that this is funny because this is what we were talking about. Like for drill team, what would you want to be your task? This is so amazing. Sometimes you're like, you do a great job. But like, I'm trying to help. In those moments, it's not fun. Like, what do you think would be like a great method? Because I had to. I was like, she just keeps saying, you do a great job, and I keep thinking, but you could do a great job too. I know. I don't know how to like
How are you doing?
I feel like now that I kind of have I just got on it and played on it.
Hopefully you can continue this discussion later, but we're gonna move to the next question.
Oh, yes. So, sorry. And you can stay on that question if you were like really on it, but I just want to move you into things that maybe you feel drained or energized by. Like, I really feel drained by entering grades, and I'm super energized by modifying Officer Contemporary.
Yes, exactly. And as a thought, you can actually do this. I've heard of like a life-giving list, and you just have like a piece of paper you carry with you or on your phone. And as you're going about a week of work, you just like, wow, I feel so good right now, and write down whatever you were just working on. And then later, if you're like, oh, I feel so drained, like, okay, I need to write that down as my draining list, and then you can talk more about it too. But let's go ahead and take like 2 minutes to chat about this.
I just had an intro. I don't know how to have conversations with people. It's like I'm going to there's like a issue that needs to be addressed. We don't have to use observation. We want somebody that if somebody that it's really this is how they are. And they get somebody there to across the school. It's just very overwhelming. Because Brinley's like, I'm really around before because she got she's trying really hard, and I know she's moving. But I was like, I'd take her out. Who's going to do it? I can't just touch her. Take one. Very young. Right now,
Drained by, and then also favorite work tasks. If there's anyone that wants to share, yes.
I am drained by the demerit system. I hate it, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's an evil. And I'm energized by cleaning routines because I love to see the progress.
Ooh, love that. Yes. And I agree with the demerit thing. I actually got rid of it and just had like still the things in our, what do we call it, constitution, that would be like probation or being kicked off the team. But otherwise I was like, it is very draining anyway. But whatever works for everyone, right? Yes.
I get very drained when my assistant tells me about all the calendar items I need to attend to. And she consistently tells me, we need to do this, we need to do this, and I'm like, oh yeah. But I'm very motivated. I love like creating the dances, not just the choreography, but the look and the combos and the costuming and all that. That's what energizes me. And she starts talking about, okay, what's the calendar in February? I'm like, oh, I don't even want to think about it.
Exactly. Again, those necessary evils. Anybody else want to share out? Yes.
We both said that we are motivated. Oh no, our favorite work task is cleaning. We both said that. I said I feel the most drained by the end of football season.
Yeah.
Like, I'm real done. I need a break.
It's not gonna play off.
Yeah, and we do. We always do. So that's tiring. I also feel drained. Like if their energy is down, like then they kind of just like drain me. I'm like, stop. Like, come on. Like we're better than this. So we have to have our little, regroup.
Yeah.
But when I feel energized is when their routines look just solid. Like I'm so pumped. The feedback, like we've said, and I am the most energized right after halftime. Like I told her I do like the Breakfast Club thing. Like I just do like my this, and they know like, okay, Bernal loved it, and I'm like, sure did. Like, and I'm so proud of them. Like that's when I'm most energized, when I hear the crowd for them.
Yes, that's so good. These are awesome, and we heard such great discussions happening, so I love it. Hopefully you can keep these conversations going. This last question, we were gonna spend some time, but because not everyone is here with your co, we're just gonna briefly touch on it and then encourage you guys to take time to think through this, to talk about it. So head directors, thinking about and actually taking time to sit down and maybe write it out, your vision for the program, if you haven't already. And then assistant directors, how can you support the vision? So I would encourage you, and just in general, not just this prompt, but if you are having a few extra minutes here at convention, taking some time to sit down with your co and talk through these things, or if you're not here, finding a time in the next few weeks and saying, hey, I went to this session at TDEA and they had some really cool reflection questions. Maybe we could talk through it together.
And blame us.
Yes.
So that you can start the conversation.
Exactly.
We want to create that space for you.
Yes. So I wanted to mention we did this session last year at TDEA, and there is a video on YouTube of the session. I mean, it's like iPhone on the chair, but it's there. If you want to listen back, it's a little bit different than this year, and that could be a good conversation starter as well. So we can share that with you guys at the end if you want to come get that from us. But I think it's on the Phyllis Dolls YouTube channel. So, yeah.
I had also just a couple of thoughts. I would say not just vision for the program, right? We're not just directors of dance teams. It's the whole dance department, right? And that's something that has been like a conversation for me and my assistant director is like the middle school class you teach, the Dance 1 class, the JV, the varsity. It's all a part of the same program. And while she has ownership over everything that she does, like I have a vision and a philosophy for what I think dance education at Dallas High School looks like, and it all should like feed into that, right? So if as a director you haven't thought about that, definitely reflect, and then make sure you're communicating that with your assistant, and then letting them like give some input because theirs might be a little bit different, right? But then making sure that we're understanding that we're like a part of this same vision, right? Like your JV should support your varsity or your dancing prep class or whatever it is that you call it. Also, I'm assuming with tasks and things, we all love cleaning the most, right? Or a lot of us love like that part of the process. And so look for the opportunities, like Rachel was saying, like as the director, you feel like you always need to be at the front. And and this has been like a humbling thing for me, like my assistant director, very young, works for crowd pleasers, like she is gonna make my officers look good, right? And I wanna be out there at every practice, but I have so many other things that I have to do, and so I've had to be like, hey, like, let's kind of talk about it. Can you work with them for the whole 3 hours, and like I'll kind of pop out every once in a while, but like I know that makes her so excited, and then she knows like I trust everything that she does, and she just gets to go for it. And I may come back and be like, oh, can we modify this? Oh, I didn't like that, or we can change it, right? But in general, like she's getting a lot of ownership of the dances as well, and I want her to stay for more than a year, right? So that's like the most important thing to me, is that she feels valued. This is my program, I'm hopefully gonna be there as long as Angela was, that's my goal, right? So I get the longevity of it, and I want her to feel like everything she's doing is a part of like the new success of the Dulles Dolls.
Yes, and I would say those draining tasks, if yours fall in different areas, that's great, because you can say, I'll take that, because you obviously are super drained by it, but I don't mind it, right? But if you're both drained by certain things, then just maybe divvy it up, you know, just try to share the load a little bit.
Counting the t-shirt money.
Exactly, exactly, yes. Fan shirts were like the
What are
worst.
the names on the back?
Oh, goodness. So just to segue into that, it really truly is a partnership, or that's the goal, right? And collaboration is so much more fun, honestly, when you are getting that input. I find even though it can take a little bit longer to talk through things and make some adjustments and changes, it actually, in the end, ends up so much better, is what I've found in my experience with working with Kayla. And we did that with, you know, choreography, everything, really anything and everything, we would talk about it. All right, so I'm gonna let Kayla touch just a little bit on mentorship if you are working with someone who is brand new, just out of college, that kind of situation.
So one thing that I was encouraged to do was like a 9-week or a semester check-in. And so Alyssa and I did that. I chickened out at the 9 weeks, and I kept putting it off because I was just like so nervous about starting the conversation. And so during that finals week, I was like, let's go to Starbucks. We've got like during our conference period, we've got that extra time, and just kind of talk about like, reflect on your first semester as a teacher, what was good, what was bad, what could I have done. I try to always make it like I should be doing things to make her better, right? That's my job. What could I have done to make you feel better? And in that, I felt like she was finally able to say to me that she was feeling overwhelmed, right? Which is actually funny because that was the opposite situation with Rachel and I, because like I said, I came in not right out of college, and we didn't even talk about that, but I was feeling not valued because Rachel wasn't asking me to do as much, that especially that first year, I felt like I was like sitting there a lot, not having things to do.
I'm sitting here feeling overwhelmed, but I didn't want to burden her, is what it felt like, you know, because I thought it's new to her. But once she communicated that to me, I was so relieved. I was like, yes, I would love to give you more tasks, right? So I think that's just a really key element, is that communication.
Yeah, just allowing that opportunity. So, you know, this is like, this is a lot. Like, this is my first job, and these emails are like so much more than what I was just getting my college emails, right? And so I was like, please tell me that. I will sit with you, and like we can go through it together. But she didn't want to seem like she didn't know what she was doing, right? So she didn't want to say it. Instead, I was like, no, please tell me. And now I feel like we like are able to work through any of those issues together. But I think that can happen whether or not we're right out of college, right? It's just like, feel comfortable to speak up, and then feel comfortable also to ask the question.
Yes, and find a time to initiate a conversation. Your future self will thank you. Yes. So we were gonna take a little time for Q&A, but I feel like we've had some really good sharing out. I know we're almost out of time, but if you have any specific things you wanna talk to us about, I think both of us would be more than happy to hang out in the hall and chat afterwards. And again, we are each other's best resource, so definitely reach out to other directors in your district, across districts, all that is awesome. Couple final tips. Again, just keep communicating. Enneagram is awesome. Thinking about your word choice, so just, you know, that my assistant thing, thinking about that a little bit. And just going to finish off by just sharing a little bit I will be in the exhibit hall the rest of today and then tomorrow morning as well. So we'll have copies of the book. And this, it's geared towards your dancers, so it's written for the dancer. But it's just like relationship stuff, right? It's empathy, it's conflict resolution, it's trust, integrity, all of that kind of stuff. So if you and your co also wanted to read through or look through those topics, it could be helpful. We also have some here if you're interested in taking a look at it. And I've got some cards which have information on the back if you would like. And yeah, booth 207, trying to see if there's anything else. You can contact us if you want to email either of us or find us